Hello, here we are again with Mookie Tenembaum. We are exploring through these videos his disillusionist philosophy and focusing on the misalgic theory, the theory according to which human behavior can be explained as aversion to suffering. And for years now, month after month, we've been trying to apply these theories and concepts of a rather abstract nature to facts from everyday life. We've covered the news at times. We've discussed details of the COVID-19 pandemic back in 2020. We've spoken a lot about the war in the Ukraine. And sometimes we pay attention to facts of daily life that can illustrate how disillusionism works. Today, what we are going to try to do is to address responsibility, something everyone knows, something everyone experiences, something everyone talks about, responsibility, but from a disillusionist point of view, and see where that takes us.
Well, I would say that the responsibility has a synonym, a very colloquial synonym. It says you're in charge.
Being in charge.
Being in charge. You remember when Reagan was shot in the 80s? His Secretary of State, Alexander Haig, suddenly got into his office and says, "I'm in charge." And he wasn't. But I'm in charge. You are in charge, and you are in charge. It's good because it has the two sides of the word responsibility, and I will explain why. First of all, let me differentiate two kinds of responsibility. They're very different. One is your personal responsibility, feeding your children. Okay, I don't know, closing the door in the building so people who still don't come in. It's your responsibility. You came in, you're supposed to close the door, period. You have, as I say, much larger responsibility, feed your children, clothe your children, do all kinds of things that you need to do for children. And this is responsibility on the first level. What is special about this responsibility is that it has a causal, there is a cause, a causal relationship. That means for me to have the responsibility, I should be in charge of the cause that may cause it to violate. So that's number one. Number two, always responsibility, and this is not only for the individual one, it has to be open. That means I'm not responsible of breathing because I'm going to breathe anyway. I'm not responsible of my thermoregulation to have the same temperature. I'm not responsible of that because this is automatic. I am responsible of things that I can make a decision about. So I'm responsible of my weight. I'm not responsible of my height. Yes.
Perfect.
Here you can be how it works.
Perfect.
Now, when we go to responsibility on what I call the universal level, it works really not very related with cost. You are responsible for taking all your plastic bottles and putting them in a plastic place to save the planet. But in fact, you are responsible of saving the planet. You're responsible of because you have a carbon footprint. I'm even trying to use the wordings, those weird wordings, and now you feel that every time you walk, you leave your footprint. Yes. So now you are ruining something. You are responsible that the species in the world will not disappear. You are responsible for the future of the planet. You are responsible. You're responsible to vote. It's your responsibility to vote. In countries like in the US, you don't have to vote. In other countries, it's also a criminal offense not to vote. But when it is legal, you are responsible to vote because it's your responsibility. Now, what's different between that responsibility and the responsibility to feed your children? The answer is very simple. If you don't feed your children will starve. If I don't vote, or if I don't throw plastic, or I pick up my plastic, or I don't know what, or I don't turn my air conditioning when it's not hot enough, then what will happen? Nothing. The answer is nothing, if you do it or if you don't. So now it becomes what I would call a floating responsibility, something that is not really tethered towards the cause. Yes, something that I am the cause. You don't need to be the cause. You need to be part of a cause, okay? But not the necessary ingredient. So as I say, So those are universal responsibilities, which I say are very different from the other one. Now, how do we ever get into have universal responsibilities, Florencio? It comes from the fact that we went from being anonymous, that means known. If you were in a village with 30, 40, 50 people, 100 people even, everybody knows everybody in the village, into the anonymity that cities and big agglomerations cost. So now I do have to have, how do I get to people to not to ruin the village? Well, it's very easy. Shame did enough. You will not do, you will not throw a piece of paper in the street in a village because people will look at you and you depend on other people and you can throw it in the middle of the street in any city and nothing will happen. Even if somebody looks at you, you don't care because you don't know the guy and you'll never see him or she again. So that anonymity needed some kind of new way to define responsibility. And this is the universal responsibility definition in which the word, it becomes, funny. So what do you say about all this, Praneta?
I followed your argument and I was thinking exactly in this same direction. It's easy to picture how in earlier, more primitive, smaller societies, responsibility was, I would say, very matter of fact, very simple in a way, and there should have been a few responsibilities. Some shared, agreed, everyone was in charge of children not starving, and a few specific, specialized one. This guy is in charge of hunting, that other guy is not in charge of hunting, but still a simple, easily recognizable set of responsibilities. When you speak about the metropolis, when you speak about the sophisticated situation in which we now live, there are thousands, literally thousands of responsibilities around. The ones we all share and the ones that have to do with very, very specialized tasks certain individuals are in charge of. So it's been a huge sophistication, a huge inflation of responsibility from prehistory to our days. And there's also a distinction in what you were describing that I'm interested in. Some of these responsibilities seem to be the result of a decision one has made. It's a responsibility one has assumed and voluntarily embraces, so to speak. And those other responsibilities you spoke about have been imposed, have been laid upon us without our choosing, without our say in the matter. I think it's tricky because in the set of what I'm in charge of is that I took charge of, and also that came on me. It was already waiting for me when I was born, so to speak, right?
Well, I can tell you that several things in what several issues that you raise here. But when you are saying the ones that are imposed, I can think of a very obvious one, and that is the national debt. Every American that is born owes, I don't know, $90,000, $100,000 each baby when it's born. So now you have a responsibility that was totally imposed on you by being born. Of course, when you take a job, some people ask, what are my responsibilities? Okay, what are the characteristics of my job? Is what I am in charge and what I am not in charge. So then you do have a choice not to take that responsibility, which I would say is in the middle, because you need a job. So sometimes you take the responsibilities you wouldn't take, but you need the money at the end of the month. So then you also are responsibilities you take upon yourself. You go to church and you ask and you become a volunteer for helping old people, go to the hospital. And now you have taken that responsibility on you. As you say, there are three kinds or 2.5 kinds of responsibilities. Yes, it's really 2.5. So, but the interesting thing is that the word responsibility has an epical value. It has a value that helps you, that gives it epic. So now you are just a foreman, you know, and running some truck, a foreman in a truck company. And now you say, no, I'm not a truck, I'm not a foreman in a truck company. I'm in charge of 45 drivers. I'm in charge.
Yes. Yes.
And if I'm in charge of something, now, wait. This is the ethical part of it, the responsibility. Not the real job. This is not what you do. In fact, there is no responsibility while you are sleepwalking. Because feeling responsibility means you have to be awake. So you are really feeling responsible very little time a day. If you do much more, then your life is not good. Responsibility is a burden, the burden of responsibility. You take it on your back. That's how it's being seen. Of course, some people will say, I am happy to have the responsibility for my children. Of course, that's very nice. That's also epic. So the epical ingredient in all this has to do with this.
It's an interesting balance, right? Because there's what you said in the beginning, the bragging rights that come with increased responsibility and this pride that one feels. And on the other side, the burden, the pain, the suffering of being responsible.
And the burden now, it's because we are living in an anonymity world, our moral conscience is where normally it resides. So now they can tell you everything. How universal responsibility became a thing, because it is really, it is sitting on your moral conscience. In fact, there is no way to give universal responsibility to a psychopath, ever. He doesn't have a moral conscience. He doesn't care. But all the other moral conscience, all the big majority of people who, like us, who do have a moral conscience, we are being hacked that way. This is a hack. Telling you that you're responsible for the planet, it's a hack. I mean, why am I responsible for the planet? What has the planet to do with me? And it goes and it becomes crazier and crazier with the time. You're not only in charge of this planet, you're in charge now of the next planet, because you've seen articles about Mars going to be ruined by like Earth. We should not go to Mars.
Polluting Mars, yes.
Or polluting or polluting the space. Some people have thrown, I don't know, some urine stacks in space, and now it's full with garbage. Nobody saw the size of what they're talking about. So, but it doesn't matter. You see, facts don't matter for universal responsibility. It could be totally devoid of, it just have a pretext, not really facts. No, you are responsible because you are here and you're responsible for what happens, not to your generation, not to the next generation, even to the generation who was not yet conceived, let alone born. So it is a trap. As I say, responsibility, spatial universal responsibility, is a trap.
It's interesting in what you say, the role that maybe more in the past shame and maybe more now in the present guilt, as special types of suffering play in setting this trap, right? When the trap snaps, feeling responsible, being accountable, has to do with shame, maybe, especially with guilt. I think it's how you describe it, right? It's lately more and more connected with a moral consciousness. That's the feeling of responsibility and how it's enforced, right?
The people who run the illusions, the illusionists, or the players of it, the countries, the states, the society, religion, they all rely on your moral conscience. So they all hack on it. And responsibility is one great form to hack. But the answer is, why am I responsible for something I don't cause? I don't have control over. I cannot be held responsible for that. And they say, well, the way to atone for that is do your job. But wait, even if I do my job, the planet is going to get bad.
We've discussed this in a different situation, but I think it applies here. sometimes, many times, especially in anonymous societies, as you describe them, my job becomes my identity, becomes what I am. So maybe there is another argument for responsibility here that has to do with personal identity. I know you don't need that in the village. In the village, you're not the hunter. You are not the gatherer. It's 8 of us. We know each other personally by name. But in the societies we live in, my responsibilities define me, I think, to the point that even with these epics you were discussing before, people say, I am a doctor.
Of course.
I am a pilot. And that's what they are.
No.
It's not something to do for a living.
No, and that's the good side. There is two good sides to responsibility. One is this one, and the other one is that it keeps, of course, the society inside of the sink. Yes, that means all our sleepwalking gets synced thanks to that. It's floating up there. Let me remind you that responsibility becomes liability, and that's where that's the stick. Yes, you will be liable if you don't perform your responsibility. But many of those responsibilities we take upon are a bad idea. Every time you take a responsibility, probably you are going to open yourself to a new kind of suffering. So many people, and I would say the majority of people, try not to take responsibilities. There is not such a big fight, in a company to become a boss. It's very nice for the television, but most people don't want to become a boss. I have a friend who works for police somewhere in Europe, and he was offered, of course, to be an officer, to be a high officer, and he said no, because that means they will wake me up on weekends, and the responsibility, I don't need it. That is the way to deal with responsibilities. Every time you take a new responsibility, you are opening yourself to a new kind of suffering. So, of course, I don't recommend anybody, because some people like to take responsibility. It's in their disposition. But those who don't, every time there is a responsibility, you have to think very well what's going to happen afterwards, because responsibility brings together with it liability. And that's not where you want to be.
It's interesting, because a great aid, not only for the sink in general, but a great aid for my own sleepwalking, is delegating responsibility, is outsourcing responsibility. Now it's yours. You are responsible for this. I can go back to sleep, right? There's an advantage there.
Listen, you take a plane, and the guy who is the pilot has the responsibility of flying the plane. It's not you. And that allows you to sleepwalk while you are in the plane. Every time around you, there are people with responsibilities. The truth is that it's division of labor. There is no responsibility. This is just the epical way of saying it. You know that this helps people. Some people help them do their job better, which I'm not sure. But this is how things are done. And this word becomes more and more used and abused. Yes, you are responsible of talking to somebody with the pronoun he likes, or she likes, or it likes, or they like, or I don't know how they want to call themselves today, Your Majesty likes. Responsibility becomes not to offend somebody. For every freedom, they say there is a responsibility. But it's turning more to responsibility and less to freedom. Yes, we keep becoming more and more enslaved into our responsibility. It could make you a slave if you abuse with it. If there is an abundance of responsibility, and many people don't know even how to administer them, and they found themselves in the middle of a big problem.
I think we got it covered. We are close to our usual limit in time. I don't want to be responsible for us extending ourselves again.
You'll become liable. Good.
They will hold it against me. No, I really think we gave it a good deal. And it will come to haunt us, as these topics always do.
I leave a topic open.
If you enjoyed the video, please like it, comment and subscribe.